whether it's collapsing footbridges in Mumbai or garbage piles on fire in Delhi, it's clear that our cities are woefully lacking when it comes to planned infrastructure. Now, Bangalore City's plans of the elevated roads project to tackle its notorious traffic has run into criticism from experts who say this is a short-term solution. The focus, they say, really needs to be on prioritizing public transport.
Beautiful Bengaluru is changing, and one of the frequent complaints by people here is the traffic. Now, the government is planning an elevated corridor, a massive project. We're talking about more than 30,000 crores, at least 3,000 trees, but there are many who feel this is not the answer. Why is this? Zibi, we all complain about the traffic. We say we can't get from point A to point B. Why are you against this plan, which would seem on the face of it to really fly above the traffic problem?
I think what kind of convinced us here there in Whitefield is like the scientific study that Professor Ashish Verma had done, and where he says that rather than decongest Bangalore, it's going to cause more congestion. So I don't think this is really going to solve the problem. The stated aim seems to be to let the people move, but I think we are in more trouble down a few years down the line.
How would it congest the city more? Why would you say so?
I think it's going to add more private vehicles to the road. I think globally, and lots of studies have shown, you give roads, more people will drive. The aim should be to move people to public transport, use the buses, use the metro, use the suburban rail network, develop that. But rather than that, you are letting people use their private vehicles. You are encouraging them by building more roads. So it's just going to congest.
Okay. So Zibi Jamal of Whitefield Rising there, Leo Saldan of the Environment Support Group. Trees always gets the blood pressure up when it comes to major projects. What are we looking at for this project, and how will it matter?
I think you're looking at Massacres of what little greenery is left. There's been a precipitous drop in the green cover of the city in the last 2 decades. And whatever is left now is about 25% of what was there 20 years ago. So if you are going to allow this project to go through, then probably you are going to look for trees rather than have tree lines. Now, one of the critical problems here is that it's not just the fact that the trees will go, but the trees have been protected by law and also several court orders. The High Court in one case, which I fought in 98 and in the final order in 2001, has said, if you are going to touch anything in Cubbon Park, after all the clearances the state has given, it is still not to be built till such time the court has the right to inspect. Because what the court said was, we lack trust in you, right? And today people are saying the same thing. We can't trust this government because it has pushed this project through, and it's putting the cart before the horse. A tender has come before the environmental clearance. The environmental clearance has been given to a project.
They really seem set on it.
No, environmental clearance is given to a project which doesn't exist legally.
Well, what kind of numbers are we looking at? Do you have a figure for the number of trees which are likely to go?
The claim is 3,500. But my feeling is that when you cut a tree, you are cutting the root structure which is talking to other trees. And other trees will also die. So you can never ever imagine what colossal damage you are doing.
Naresh Narasimhan, architect. It is a solution. Are we always objecting to government mega projects as a knee-jerk reaction, or is there something really fundamentally wrong?
I have a very strong precedent. When we objected to the steel flyover, right? Yes. The current chief minister and the deputy chief minister came out against it. If you remember, the Mr. Kumaraswamy clearly said that this kind of projects will spoil this Bangalore city, and he said that this kind of project should not be encouraged, right? The Deputy Chief Minister...
He was not in power then.
Yeah, the Deputy Chief Minister, Mr. Parmeshwara, also made a statement saying this kind of project should not be allowed to spoil. How is it that they can change their mind and we are not allowed to? We are not the Baker Brigade. We are the Baker Brigade for common sense, right? If you keep flip-flopping like this, we don't believe anything you say. And we feel that whatever is being shown to the public right now is only the tip of the iceberg, and this project will probably double. We have a very good record in Bangalore. Metro has been going for 20 years now, right? We started with 6,000 crore. At that time they said we have to take it on top of MG Road because it will cost 9,000 crore. The project ended at 16,000 crore. And today close to 80,000 crore is committed for the metro with no end in sight. Correct? With the next phase is supposed to be 10,000, that's become 25,000.
So there is a great sense of faith in terms of the project being finished.
There's a scope and cost creep in this kind of public projects. And two, that is not the real point. The point is we need a livable city. Mobility is not the only reason to live in a city, right? We need great air to breathe, good water to drink, great footpaths to walk around, etc. And
Will all this be impacted by the project, you feel, air and...
in any of the drawings of the elevated corridor that has been put out in public consumption, there is not a single bicycle visible. There is not a single, the footpaths are about 5 feet in the entire road width of 120 feet, on 5 feet on either side. Right? There are tiny little footpaths. And there is no idea at all of any greenery. There is no avenue lines. So the plan apparently has been made by the world's largest road design company, which has its headquarters, has its office in Bangalore. I think it's been done by a bunch of mischievous people out to destroy this place once and for all. It is not a... If I would not expect this as a fellow professional from another fellow professional to actually endorse a scheme like this, which will... Bangalore can forget about being a garden city. From now on, it will be known as the stupid guys who made a concrete city.
Concrete
and
city.
The funniest argument I heard yesterday with one of the supporters of the project, I said, man, the whole place will become so hot, you will have to take your car out for even if you want to go to the corner shop to buy milk, there's no trees anywhere. He says, why? The concrete flyover, elevated corridor will give you shade, I believe. This is the limit,
Priya Chetty, you're a concerned citizen. You have been active even in the project, the steel bridge as we called it, the steel flyover. You were against that also because of the trees that were involved. What happens now? Why do you feel this project will not be worth it for the city?
I'd be very chary about getting back into that whole Beku Beda nonsense, because I think those are very clever and rather cheap optics to confuse people. It's also very clever to sort of brand us as the tree huggers. It's very easy, it's emotive, it gets us into that dumb clerk not thinking about it. We're smart, we've applied ourselves to it. I told you that I've not really jumped into this protest very easily. I spent some time thinking about it, looking at the data. I didn't even have to go very deep to understand. It's completely flawed on impact. It's completely flawed on process. I think these two reasons are enough to understand that we cannot hold the city to ransom for 10 years while the white topping happens, the pillars come up, instead of trees, the metro, the elevated corridor, the suburban, all of it, of course, suburban is good, and we are just held to ransom for 10 years. Let's hold the same years and figure out a faster process on the metro and suburban rail instead.
Other options.
And no one is saying no. They're saying, let's fix this before we go forward. And the idea is, but we need to do this now. What were you doing 10 years ago? So I don't want to particularly sort of beat you on the head with that, but let's at least start now. Suburban rail, while everyone says, where did the focus on suburban rail start? The so-called Baker Brigade focused on the Chukubuku Beku or on Bus Bhagya, which were both strong Beku projects.
So there are options, there are other things which can be done to make the traffic just so much better.
There are options which are sensible, which have to be thought through, and that's why, once again, at the risk of repetition, I would say that the Unified Metropolitan Transport Authority or a single authority of an umbrella needs to be able to think about these in cohesion and collaboration. If the traffic person doesn't know what BMTC is doing, we have a problem. So the city has been plagued by short-sightedness, but we cannot let our city be sacrificed on the altar of greed. While we sit back and say, we must listen to you, we have lost trust. I'll put it very bluntly. My parents have let us down by trusting in the system. I want to trust in the system. Their trust got them nowhere. The city that we know is coming down to a 2.97 or 2.6 whatever tree cover as compared to 60% of 30, 40 years ago. So when that happens, I want to ask you, what are we going to tell the next generation? So if I'm very careful. We should not get emotional about this. We should get emotional about our city, but we should get sensible about the impact and process. And let the government deal with us as people who will support any good movement.
Has there been public consultation? Has there been any kind of...
That is the funny thing. Any project of this nature, according to the Karnataka Town and Country Planning Act, has to go through 4 stages of consultation. It has to go through a feasibility, it has to go through a project formulation, it has to go through a budget and timeline, and finally execution. They've done a pole vault. From somebody had an idea sitting somewhere at home, it has gone into the government, and next day morning tender is issued.
And
there is not a single,
acres.
and they say that we will have a public consultation later. You cannot do that.
It's too late.
Another problem is that they actually pushed through a land acquisition amendment law,
For this project.
in which it says that Karnataka is growing at a fast pace, and so we don't want due process, and we want to acquire land, and so this 130 can become 230.
We don't want due process is frightening. Yeah, we have to be good ancestors as well, and we have the next generation here, a couple of young students as well, Arudra and Tejaswini. Why do you feel? Why have you come here to protest against this project?
So when I heard about this project, one of the biggest questions that came up in my mind was, who is this actually going to help? And we're seeing that in terms of people who use public transport, it tends to be people who are working class, people who are students. And as someone who has pretty severe health problems, my mobility is already compromised. So I find that it's really expensive for me to get around the city. And so now, like when you're coming up with an idea like this, if you're actually trying to solve mobility problems, is that not something that you ought to be looking at? Is that not something that the government should be considering, that there are people over here who want to, get around the city, do all of these different things, and the existing infrastructure is not helping them? And
so the government is proposing this great big new infrastructure. Why are we against that?
That's the thing. The elevated corridor is only going to be useful to someone who has their own private vehicle, which is not that many people. It is a very specific subset of people who has that kind of access to a car and the ability to drive themselves around. Like I, for one, am not someone who can drive.
Benefiting the
myself around.
privileged. You think?
Absolutely.
Tejaswini? Why do you feel you need to come and speak against this?
My problem has been with the government's perception of development. And in a time where we are all moving towards sustainability and the definition of sustainability itself becoming ecocentric, development can't always trump ecological needs. That development vis-a-vis environment can't always be cut trees to develop. I think there's a need to redefine development, and that all projects, especially such a large-scale one, must be firstly sustainable, must be firstly socially inclusive and economically viable, and then later development. Yeah, and also at the time where laws have been relaxed there was a 2015 amendment to the Tree Preservation Act. I was shocked to know that. And these are just means to just further your only pro-development agendas.
Prakash Belwadi joining us now. This project, this huge, enormous project, very little or no public consultation at all. Then why? Do you have a lack of faith in the fact that the government may be doing it for the benefit of the people? Do you doubt that?
You have to suspect that these are rent-seeking projects, which is the reason why the opposition is quiet. Why is the BJP quiet? It is because, this will take, now it is, they're saying 30,000, 35,000, random figures, like as though it doesn't matter what numbers you throw.
A few thousand crores here.
Yeah. So now the thing is, if by the estimates we can make seeing projects, other big projects, it may go up to 80,000 crores, even 1 lakh crores. And this will happen over, say, 10 years, which means our turn will come too, is what perhaps the BJP feels, and that's why they're quiet, because, it's not for their voters. Probably people who are supporting this are not people who will vote even, I think, So this is not being done for their voters even, Forget the larger Janata of Bangalore.
Would it impact voting, though? Would it impact? Do people think of these things when they go out to vote? Do you think it will play in the minds?
I think that's a very good question. So what we are saying right now, we are saying elevated corridor beda. But perhaps, they should feel a resonance in this, and they should feel Nim Sarkara Beda. It may also mean eventually, So I'm saying, if we keep up this, see, they're saying you're always saying Beda. I told somebody that, the reason we use the word Beda is because in Basavanna's Vachana, he repeatedly says, Kala Beda, Kola Beda. Why he's saying, he categorizes all evil in one side and he talks. So it's because you're not part of this folk idiom. You're not part of this culture. So Bangalore is a Janapada also. You don't understand how we feel. We are an academic city. We are a science city. This is a garden city. That is part of the Janapada of this city. We need to preserve that as well. So you need to think about everything before you decide projects. You can't change the character of the place. That is the problem.
Which they seem to be doing. Is this an election issue? Would you think about it? Have you voted yet? First-time voters or a...
I have voted.
Would this play in your mind when you're voting?
I think definitely if a project has been hoisted on the public as the only panacea for some issue, then it's definitely going to play into the voters' mind.
Okay.
But there's definitely an information asymmetry with the whole project. So
Would you consider this when you vote?
Of course I would. I think it's really important to, also understand locally what is going to happen when you're voting. And this is definitely, I think, going to affect a lot of people in the way they vote because of the way information is being spread and things.
Is it an election issue for you? Will people think of this when they go to the ballot?
I don't have an opinion on that, but I believe election is an important dynamic in this. And again, I don't think we'd like to see the city sacrificed while people figure out where their seats are and where votes are going to come from. This is Bangalore. Bangalore has a voice, and if the government is not going to be the city's voice right now, we are more than happy to stand up because we believe we have something to protect.
It is election season. Will this play in the minds of voters?
I'm not so sure because the opposition party here has not said a single thing till date.
All politicians seem to be in favor of it, whatever.
It looks like a commonly agreed common minimum program of all parties.
Party lines, as they say.
So really my only appeal to government is why are we doing horrible projects like this which will destroy the city's culture and character as we know it, instead of doing projects which the people will genuinely benefit. Those are also big ticket. I was told that the government is only interested in projects which have 5 zeros and bigger in crores. Otherwise they don't pay attention. Buying 6,000 buses in Bangalore will cost 6,000 crore. Right, buy 1 crore a bus, right? 6,000 buses.
Which would still be much less.
And you spend 5,000 crores on making footpaths in Bangalore. Do all that. Make bus travel free for anybody below a certain income level. Subsidize it. We will support all those moves wholeheartedly. But privileging a few people by providing infrastructure for private transport, particularly cars, I think is a retrogressive fossil fuel idea whose idea has gone.
Leo, if this is not an election issue, should it become an election issue? Should voters think about these things when they step out, or is it just...
If voters care about their future, they'll make it an election issue. But I have a message for Rahul Gandhi. He accused Narendra Modi of making India a shoot-boot sarkar. Now Rahul Gandhi's own party is making Bangalore a case of shoot-boot sarkar. Because yesterday, Koromangala initiative, 35 people went and met the Deputy CM and said, we want the corridor. And here there are thousands, 1 lakh signatures.
Yes, there's a huge online petition.
I said, what the
There's
hell are you doing?
A massive online petition against this EB. Will it play out into voting as well? I mean, how many signatures so far?
I think more than 1 lakh. I think it was within a day 1 lakh people signing on to a petition is unheard of. I think in Bangalore. I mean, Bangalore is very technical, savvy, and it went through across the groups. But I think 1 lakh within a day is huge. That kind of talks to how passionately people feel about this.
The voice. So more than 1 lakh people have signed an online petition against the project. People here saying that there was really no public consultation at all. They are talking against this, giving solutions, other solutions as well. But the government does seem really set on going ahead. Will it play out in the elections? Probably not, is the theory here. But certainly the many people in the city want their voice to be heard against this elevated road project. With Govind Murthy, Maya Sharma in Bengaluru for NDTV.